co-hosts from the first hour. I like to call them holdovers. They call themselves mainstays. He is a retired admiral, former president of the Berkeley County Commission, Mr. Bill Stubblefield.
Good morning, Rob. Fun to be here.
And now in a really good mood until Bill calls him ugly. Let's welcome in the Badger, Michael Howdy. I think you're a handsome man.
Thank you, sir. I'm not the ugly Badger.
No, I don't know where that.
Just the Badger.
Where's this
Bill.
anger's coming from?
I think he didn't get me stirred up earlier, so now he's trying any way he can to get me fired up. Well, I'm not taking the bait, Bill.
With the video access that our viewers now have,
yes.
They can look and make a judgment.
Yeah, they know better, Bill. They know better.
Or maybe not.
Shut up, Larry.
And we go around the room with that said and welcome in the senior member of our crew, longest tenured member of the program. It's Mr. Michael Carl.
Good morning, everybody.
Former tax commissioner of the state of West Virginia, attorney at law. Also, speaking of attorneys at law, Mr. Lawrence Schultz.
Great to be here.
And via telephone, Joseph Joey Torts Ferretti.
Good morning, fellas.
Joe, where do we find you located this morning?
I am still in Georgia, but I will be packing up and heading for West Virginia this weekend.
Going to the cabin?
At first, yes, and then I have some business to do over in the Clarksburg area.
Are you representing any NBA personnel at this time who are involved in any?
No, that's criminal, and I don't do that kind of work.
Yeah, you could have just stopped at that's criminal. Who would have guessed, as these leagues fell all over themselves to just glom onto every buck that they could when gambling became such an easy thing to do, that there would be a big gambling scandal in a professional sports league?
I am shocked.
Aren't you? Really?
Shocked.
Just caught us all by surprise.
Yeah.
Right? Now,
Well, you know, Rob, Bill Simmons, who is probably the foremost journalist and writer for the NBA, he has maintained for years that those games have been fixed by the referees.
well, we did see one instance of that, right?
Yep.
But
Yeah.
that's several years or so ago. That was before gambling became as pervasive as what it is now.
Well, it was always pervasive. It's just that it's easier to do it now.
It's legal now.
It's illegal,
Yeah.
right? Now,
As opposed to.
here's the thing that offends me the most as a Sicilian with all these gambling problems that are going on right now. This is the only way I know how to look at things, Joe.
You took offense to the mafia being roped in on this NBA story, didn't you?
No,
on.
here's what I took offense to. Cash Patel trying to pronounce Sicilian names. Because we got it involves the Bonanno crime family, the Genovese crime family, and the Lucchese crime family. Lucchese? Who the hell pronounces it Lucchese? Where's he been? These 5 families have been around since 1920. It's Lucchese. CCH in Italian is a K sound. Come on, Cash.
I would like a video of, not the audio, but a video of his eyes as he was mispronouncing those names.
It might
be great.
You could mess you up a little bit.
Yeah.
He's got some bug eyes.
Let's start off with our leadoff hitter here. And, Joe, that would be you. Segment number 1.
Thank you, Rob. I'm going to start with quoting our president from Tuesday. Quote, "We have numerous cases having to do with the 2020 election, fraud in the 2020 election. And because of everything that we found out, we can never let it happen again. We just can't let it happen. I know Cash is working on it, to speak of the devil. Everybody's working on it. Tulsi's working on it. We can't let that happen again to our country." As I listened to him on Tuesday make those pronouncements in the Oval Office, I was wondering if it's just another case of him not being able to let go, or are we looking at a preview of coming attractions? What I do know is that he has installed high-ranking officials who clearly have designs to prepare the country for the upcoming midterm elections. Here's a name you got to remember: Heather Honey, who is now the election integrity official at Homeland Security. She was recorded, the New York Times has the recording, she was recorded telling right-wing activists that the president was empowered to declare a national emergency to take control of local election operations. She said, "We can't take these other steps without Congress, but we can mandate that states do things," and so on, close quotes. We've watched nationwide as states have hurriedly tried to change their electoral maps. And North Carolina just changed their boundaries of their voting districts for the third time since the 2020 census. In August, Trump was quoted as saying, quote, "We're going to start with an executive order that's being written right now by the best lawyers in the country to end mail-in ballots because they are corrupt." And then after the Alaskan summit with Putin, in his first interview, he says, "Can you believe it? Putin told me that he thought it was crazy that we have mail-in ballots in our elections." Trump is currently pushing Republicans in Congress to change the laws on how states register voters, either online or through automatic or same-day registration. Remember, West Virginia has the motor voter registration law. And of course, Heather Honey continues to spout forth information about the intent of the administration, talking about rigged voting machines and the need to evaluate those. The president has installed attorneys from Stop the Steal, remember that from 2020, Stop the Steal efforts. Kurt Olson, Ed Martin are now in Homeland Security and the Department of Justice working on, quote, election integrity issues. And he recently hired a lady from Georgia named Marcy McCarthy, who was famous down here for spreading misinformation about voting machines in Georgia and also granting late-hour access to Trump attorneys to an election site, hoping to get election data from the very machines she claims were unreliable. So this is all going on and being set up, and I'm just wondering, with the upcoming elections, we know these are going to be the most contentious probably in our lifetime. We know that Trump needs to avoid a 2018 repeat where the Republicans got swept out of the House. We know that these efforts at gerrymandering are taking place. We know that deep fake technology is going to be rampant in this next election, and it's going to be hard to figure out what's real and what's not. We know the turnout is going to be high. In 2018, in the first midterm election after Trump was elected, the turnout was the highest since 1914. We know Trump will be turning 80 next year, and questions about his health, much like those that dogged Biden, will be front and center. And we know that foreign influence will be perhaps at levels we've not seen before, to borrow a phrase from Trump, because Trump is easily triggered. So the bottom line here is this something to worry about going forward, as since it appears to have been set up to have a lot of challenges involved in this upcoming election? Are we going to have to expect for armed personnel from either the military or the National Guard to be at our election sites? And should we have fear that this upcoming election is going to be one that perhaps we'll never forget in terms of all the rancor, challenges, arguments, and really impediments that are going to be put in place to vote? That's my concerns going forward. Do others share those?
All right, let's go to the man who's seen more elections than anybody else in this room, Mr. Bill Stubblefield.
Joe, you've provided a litany of things to be concerned about, and you started it by invoking the 2020 election. There's a significant difference, in my view, between what we're seeing in 2020 and what we're seeing in today, and that is the scale and the numbers of things that we should become concerned about. There was a kind of a one issue following the 2020 election, and that was the election itself. Now you turn around every day, there is a different front that people are concerned about. Or people are praising on one hand and people are concerned on the other hand. It is a series of, I think, of deflections. It's difficult to harness an argument against or force against these perceived courses of action when there's so many of them facing at one time. I am concerned about the upcoming election. I'm concerned about two or three reasons. Gerrymandering is being carried to a heightened level. North Carolina, Texas. Then we've seen it been counted in part in Carolina. Virginia's threatening to do the same thing. So we're going to just have a continual redrawing of the lines. I'm concerned about what's happening in Louisiana with the last peg of the Voters' Rights Act that was passed in the Johnson years. That has been methodically torn down, and quite probably some would say, in Louisiana, the Supreme Court will remove the last vestige of that, I think, a very significant act to protect minorities, to be sure their voices were heard. There's a lot of reasons to be concerned, but I'll go back to my central point. There are so many things in front of us now that people are taken exception to, that I think that the argument against is being diffused and being muted. So I don't see that we're going to, and everything puts a hand in the faith in the Supreme Court. Supreme Court has not been very prompt in taking on these issues. So we'll see what happens. Yeah, I share with you a great concern.
Mike Carl.
Well, certainly the process, the election process itself is important, but I'm not convinced that there's any serious threats of the actual process itself. And I think the gerrymandering issue and the allocation of voting districts, or how they're set up is the main issue that'll have a consequence in the coming elections, and that's but the bill raised about the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court has I think if they were convinced that there were serious functional issues and corrupt practices in the election process itself, that we would hear from them, but we haven't so far. So I don't think that what tells me that the reality of that threat is not great at all.
Mr. Schultz.
Yes, this is a clear attempt to threaten at this moment, because they haven't had a chance to carry it out yet, a systematic dismantling of voting rights in a whole bunch of different ways in this country. I understand what Mr. Carl is saying, but if he's right, then we're only going to address this, if at all, after the whole system has been dumped on its head. I can't take that risk. I don't think any American should take that risk, because if they're permitted to corrupt our election system, do away with mail-in voting, do away with other ways in which the Republicans feel they're given a disadvantage, then there is no reason for you not to expect a similar turnaround when power changes hands in this country. Of course, the whole idea of messing with the voting system is to try and ensure that power won't change hands. That's why they're doing it. But if they're wrong, and if they get swept out of office, then we're going to see the whole thing flip. Will people then say, well, look, maybe we just don't need to have an election at all? The Democrats are in charge, and maybe they should just stay in charge. And maybe we'll make these congressional terms 6 years instead of 2. And, those, you're messing with the foundations. To me, the interesting comparative thing, the sort of the symbolism of attacking our voting rights, is tearing down the East Wing of the White House. That's the same sort of thing they want to do to our voting system, and we need to stop it.
So you're finding some symbolism in the East Wing?
We're right, because they lied about it till the day they started tearing it down. And then all of a sudden they're tearing down the whole East Wing of the White House, which is 12,000 square feet, by the way. So that when they do the comparison of 55,000 square feet to the new 90,000, that's really not true, because it'll only be 43,000 square feet by the time they're done tearing down this 12,000 square foot edifice. So yeah, that's par for the course. It's the same sort of thing, only that's a symbol, and this is the real deal.
Mr. Height.
They're not tearing down the whole East Wing of the White House. That's nonsense. So there's a couple of things going on here. You talk about it's a power play, and you're absolutely right. It is a power play, which is why the Democrats want to leave things the way they are now, because it allows them to stay in power. I think we have to get back to the point where all voters throughout this country feel like their vote is being counted accurately and that their vote is going to count, that they know that there are not illegal aliens voting, that they know that the machines that they're tapping their vote into are accurate when they spit out the ballot. They want to know that all of those are accurate. One of the things I was going to bring up in my issues today, I'm going to bring up now, and that's with the Dominion voting machines, which were very contentious in the last couple elections, especially with the Republicans. They didn't trust them. And now the Dominion Voting Machines company has been sold, and has been sold to a conservative who has vowed that there will no longer be any Chinese components or foreign components in the machines. And now you have the left that's up in arms saying, oh my gosh, we can't use these machines anymore because somebody on the right has bought the company. We have to get to a point where we trust the election system, and we trust whether it's a bipartisan commission to look at the machines that we're using or not. We have to get to a point where the people who are voting in the country trust the system. You want to talk about the gerrymandering in North Carolina? I went back and looked at a map before this last census of North Carolina. How in the hell was that not contentious before? That I encourage anybody to go look at the North Carolina district maps, the way they were drawn before this last time, before all the contention right now. It is so gerrymandered. I don't know how it ever got approved. There's no wonder they redrew the lines in North Carolina. It was absolutely partisan. And now to complain that somebody else is drawing the lines, it's just sour grapes. We need to get back to the point where everybody, the left and the right, trust the system that we're voting in.
I agree 100%. So everybody can trust. That's a long way to go, and I think that's aspirational. But let me go back to Dominion, and you did make that as one of your potential. And I looked last night, spent several minutes trying to find a Democrat pushback against the Dominion machines. I could not find it anywhere. So your source of news is substantially different than mine.
Well, you watch MSNBC too much.
I never watch MSNBC.
All right, good. I'm glad to hear that.
Nor do I watch Fox. But anyway, I could not find that. The implication you made was the Democrat Party as a whole was pushing back against the Dominion voting machines because that was purchased. But I could not find a single source
on the left that are pushing back and saying, since it is now owned by a conservative owner, that we should bring into question these machines. Why didn't we not bring into question them before? Why was it only the right that questioned them before?
I know the right question, but my point is I could not find any reference of the left questioning these machines now. And I spent several minutes looking for it last night.
When was the last time that you felt there was trust in the election system?
Oh my gosh, before hanging Chad.
Right, before hanging Chad?
Yeah.
See, because I can go back. I remember reading a book about, I think it was Truman Chafin, the southern end of the state, politics at that end of West Virginia. talking about the 1960 election. And in the book, it mentions how John F. Kennedy's father went around West Virginia with a suitcase of cash and bought votes.
Mm-hmm.
And you can look around in Chicago's history with politics and find a lot of stories like that. In fact, any big city in America where people were paid to vote for certain candidates. So when was the last time there actually was election integrity and that everybody was actually sure that the people that you were supposed to be voting for were legitimately being voted for?
You make a good point.
Right? So anyway, Joe, comes back to you here.
Well, a couple things. To Mike Height's point about the North Carolina legislature, I just looked it up. The Republicans have been in control in the legislature down there since 2010. So any maps that you were looking at, Mike, that predated...
I don't care who drew them. They were crap.
Well, I agree. They've been the subject of Supreme Court cases now for probably the last 10 years. And which speaks to the issue, there should be independent commissions that do the drawing of the lines. But that's another matter. The point of all this is that I fear with how everybody from the cybersecurity and election integrity arms of the Department of Justice and Homeland Security have been fired and replaced by these Stop the Steal attorneys. That is a preview, I fear, of things to come. The fact that Chris Krebs, who served Trump in the first term in terms of election security and cybersecurity, and came out and said that was the most secure election in the history of this country, and now is under investigation by the Trump administration, is a preview of things to come. And I fear also that you can tie this in, the use of the National Guard, which is becoming normalized in this country in terms of them patrolling our city streets. It is no stretch to imagine that they're going to be at polling places under some declared state of emergency from the Trump administration in November of 2026. That's my big fear, because we have stoked these fears about election integrity. And while, yes, there's been vote buying with bottles of whiskey forever, systematic vote integrity issues have only been raised recently because of the use of machines, and there has yet to be any evidence that there's a problem with these machines. And there's, as we know, Fox paid a heck of a lot of money for spouting such information in this last election cycle. So bottom line here is that I think we're on the precipice of another Trump manufactured crisis. And one thing our president does, he says the quiet things out loud, and he is really foreshadowing what's going to be coming next year. And I have a very legitimate fear about it.
Larry?
I just wanted to point out that the entire east wing of the White House is being torn down, and my source is Fox 5 out of Washington, D.C. They're Fox, so of course our Republican friends must believe what they say, plus they're right there down the street from the east wing of the White House. So I'd be very interested to hear who says it ain't happening. Trump never said it would. He, in fact, lied about it, and now they are doing it, but it is the entire east wing, all 12,000 square feet.
I would say that, Badger, after you did make the statement that they hadn't torn down the east wing, I did receive a picture of the torn down east wing.
The entire east wing?
Yes.
It looks like it's been reduced to rubble. So.
Built in 1942.
This is just the most recent major renovation of the White House that's been going on for many decades.
So why lie about it? Why say you're not even going to touch that building, that the two buildings won't even touch each other, and then tear the whole east wing down? There's something going on there. And they never got approval from anybody.
Cite the source of that statement.
I heard him say it a few days ago. Donald Trump is the one who said it.
Cite the source.
I don't know. It was a video. We can find you a source. We did this in the last week. So we'll find you a source.
Some other left-wing activist.
No. It appeared on most major networks, Mike. The source is easy to find.
All right.
Good Lord.
On that note, Joe, thank you. Good lead off. And we'll be back with the Admiral on the clocks. Welcome back, our Friday 5. That includes Joseph Joey Toyot Spready via telephone. Joe, soon to be in Pocahontas County. Good to have you back with us again.
Thank you.
Attorney at law Lawrence Schultz.
Great to be here, but I will say I know nothing is a Schultz term.
Sergeant
You guys aren't
Schultz.
allowed.
John Banner, baby. John Banner.
Schultzy.
He is the Badger, Michael Height.
Good morning. And just to prove that I could admit when I'm wrong, the entire east wing of the White House has been demolished.
It's like a Will Smith movie or something, isn't it? Yeah. Also, longest tenured member of our crew, Mr. Michael Carl.
Good morning, everybody.
And with issue number 2, the Admiral Bill Stubblefield.
Rob, I'm going to borrow or play upon a discussion you had earlier this week about the No Kings rally. Since the early days of our democracy, peaceful protest has been the norm. Much preferred than the revolutionary overthrow of governments in some countries experienced. We have allowed our frustration to be vented to some degree through peaceful protest. Last Saturday, over 2,700 registered events covering every state in the Union, with approximately 7 million people participated. In heart of MAGA country, Austin, Texas, over 30,000 people attended. New York City, over 100,000. But yet this was ridiculed by some of our political leaders. Steve Scalise dismissed the rallies as hate America movement. Speaker Johnson said the people in attendance were those who don't want to stand up and defend the foundational truth of our republic. Ted Cruz said these were paid protesters and urged the FBI to prosecute. Several states called out the National Guard, including Tennessee, Texas, Virginia, or at least had the National Guard on standby. Prior to the protests, the White House labeled the participants as Hamas terrorists, illegal aliens, violent criminals. Pam Bondi pledged to find and charge those people who are causing these chaos. Yet all the protests were peaceful. My question to my distinguished colleagues, too, why are some members of our government so fearful of peaceful protest? And will these protests just be nothing, or like they were in the 1960s, which were both peaceful and unpeaceful, but they had downstream impact? Will these protests last Saturday have any carryover influence at all?
Let's start first with Michael Carl, who had the most to lose with the leveling of the East Wing, as he was in the Nixon White House, where there were a lot of listening devices implanted that are now gone. Mr. Carl.
Well, the No Kings rallies, excuse me, it all has to do with the substance and the policy substance. The process, I'm not going to claim that they were violent or breaking the law. They were using, their freedom of speech rights to make a point. The trouble, but the point they were making, I totally disagree with, completely disagree with. So I'm not saying that they were it's illegal or wrong. They were just wrong on the merits. But they still had the right to do what they did.
Mr. Schultz.
Yes, I participated in one of the rallies in Berkeley Springs, West Virginia. By the way, for those who undoubtedly will say, 7 million, that's ridiculous. I know the guy who walked around 4 different times in an hour and a half and counted everybody there. And he averaged it out, and that's how we came up with 500 people at a rally near the courthouse in Berkeley Springs. I checked with him repeatedly. Every time he walked by me, and I said, "Is it going up or down?" Those kind of things. So he did make an effort to find out. So somewhere there's people on the right who were saying, "Oh, well, those numbers are way out of line," blah blah blah, but they're not. At least not locally, they weren't, because people actually went to the effort of counting. I think it's an important thing for those of us who believe that the wannabe dictator who's running our country and keeps tearing things down that he shouldn't can be opposed, can be peacefully opposed. It's an important statement for all of us to remember as Donald Trump ratchets up the move toward authoritarianism.
Mr. Haidt.
Yeah, I, for one, didn't have any problem with the protests at all. They were peaceful. If you say there were 7 million people, all right, I'll believe you. You say your guy went around once an hour and counted people. Did he start back over at 1? Maybe. So here's the thing.
He used Dominion voting machines to count every one of those people.
Probably. I find it ironic, the whole premise of a No Kings rally, when if Trump were truly a king, you wouldn't have been able to have the rally. It wouldn't have been a peaceful protest because he would have came around and rounded you all up and put you all in jail. That's what kings do. They don't allow protests. They don't allow people to speak out against them. They round those people up, they put them in jail, and you never hear from them again. So just the fact that he allowed, and our system of government allows for peaceful protests, proves that we don't have a king. We don't have a royal system here. We have a democracy, a constitutional republic. So I found it ironic that we're going around spouting no kings when we don't have a king.
We do have a guy who apparently wants to be.
Doesn't matter whether he wants to be.
Well, yes, it does, because you don't wait till he becomes a king to fight back.
No, because he's not a king, and those who support him know he's not a king, and we're not going to allow him to become a king. So your rally was irrelevant.
Mr. Ferretti, I'm assuming you're going to bring up the Comey and Bolton names regarding people being rounded up who are critical of Trump.
Well, to Mike Height's point, and I heard this argument made throughout the weekend. I think it's preferable that those who feel the need to protest the current administration do so early rather than too late. And I think that's the impetus behind getting out in the street and protesting, is that they see the dangers, they see the risks on the horizon, and they want to get out there and protest publicly while they still can. That's their attitude. And whether that's justified or not, history will tell us. But I think it's preferable to be too early than when the bell tolls. So that's how I would respond to that argument. But I see really the features of this rally that was held on the weekend in two aspects. Number one, I liken it to the Tea Party protests during the first few years of the Obama administration. That showed Obama, which was proven in the midterms when the Dems got wiped out, that showed that there was a real undercurrent of discontent. And that should be a message to the current administration. Whether they heed it or not will be another matter. How they respond to it will be another matter. And then secondly, I think it's a kind of a dress rehearsal for those who are running or will plan to run for office next year and in 2028. The narratives are being formed by these protests, and those candidates will pick up on those narratives, and they will become the issues for the upcoming elections. So I think the protests are valuable from those aspects, in addition to the fact that people are just simply exercising their First Amendment rights.
I think the whole King's movement really comes from this overuse of executive orders that we've seen over the last several administrations. The abandonment of Congress to do their job, actually their refusal to do their job right now, and the total abandonment of their responsibility to govern the country. And that falls on Congress. It's just like if you have a 3-year-old, they're going to keep doing whatever they can do to keep getting away with whatever they can get away with if you as your parent don't do your job. It's your job to oversee your child, and if you don't, then you have to suffer the consequences of your kid being out of control, right? So in this country, Congress over the last several years has completely abandoned, and it's really more than several years, it's decades, they've abandoned their obligation to the country. They don't govern any longer. They just give in to whatever the president wants, whoever the president is. And so we've had a country of executive orders. Well, if you've got a person in charge of the country who just has to issue an executive order to get things done, this is where you get the fear of kings, because it's one power, that's one person that's they're authoring power over everybody with an order. Well, that's kingly. That's not a democracy or a representative republic. And this is, I think, the reason why you're seeing this rise right now. And you can trace it back again to Congress refusing to do their job.
Yeah, I think you made the key point, Rob, and picking up on what word that Mike used, we will not allow. And I think there's a real fear in the country. Congress is not going to do anything. So therefore, that we part, it's very limited what we can do, because our representatives are not doing anything for us, and they're just kind of letting the administration do whatever they want to do. And that's part of also the. I give Trump a lot of credit in this regard. He has thrown so much at the system. The system does not know how to respond, because not just Jimmy Carter was criticized for having one or two or three issues that he's thrown before the people. Trump is throwing hundreds of issues in front of the system, and the system does not know how to respond.
Well, that was the game plan from the beginning, was to overwhelm the system.
And 2025, the Project 2025 that Trump disavowed, that he had no knowledge of, he's playing that, he's following that playbook verb by verb, sentence by sentence.
Rob, I think you hit the nail on the head. Absolutely. But I hate to see, and I have to point out the hypocrisy when we look at all of the executive orders that Trump has done. Where was the No Kings rally when it was Biden's executive orders or Obama's executive orders? But
that was the Tea Party movement, Mike.
But there were no Kings rallies. Nobody was calling anybody a king.
They called it the Tea Party movement.
Right, and that one was irrelevant as well. So until
you don't think that helped shape the Republican Party of today?
No, because I think the Tea Party has gone. I don't think the general Republican Party has allowed the Tea Party to dominate it the way the progressive movement has in the Democratic Party. I think the middle of the road Republicans have said no, we don't want the Tea Party.
Where are their middle of the road Republicans right now?
Right here.
No.
Right here.
Two hands went up.
Yeah.
One of the hands I might agree with, the other hand I don't agree with.
You don't think I'm a middle of the road Republican? I get called a rhino all the time.
Yeah, well, that's...
One more
you
point,
can't
Rob.
rely upon those people to make judgments.
Go ahead,
That's
Joe.
the whole problem.
The other fear about a king, let's not forget that the Supreme Court took the old maxim that no man is above the law and just trashed it for this president.
All right, on to issue number 3, and for that, it is time for the Badger, Michael Carl. Turn your phone back on, sir.
Michael
Hyde, I'm sorry.
All right, thank you. I just got considerably older.
And richer.
Yeah, no kidding.
And more handsome.
Man,
Bill is on a tear today. I'll tell you what.
That's right, is older.
So I'm gonna give us a hypothetical question, because we can argue about whether or not this is actually happening or not. And we'll talk about the ICE agents, and we say, so my question is, if ICE agents are being attacked while performing their duties and local law enforcement is told to stand down, and that is an accusation that is going on throughout the nation right now in different cities, that ICE is out there performing the duties that we can argue about whether or not they should be doing these things or not. My contention is they are out there performing their duties, and they are being attacked, and in some instances, law enforcement is told to stand down. If that is happening, what should happen? What should be done to protect these ICE agents?
Joe Ferretti.
Okay, so you're referring to, in one respect, what happened in Chicago, where there is a document out there that says that the police commander for the city of Chicago issued a stand-down order regarding his officers responding to an ICE officer who was being surrounded by protesters. If that happened, And if it's happening in other cities, I'll look at this clinically. That is a violation of law. Any police commander or police chief who issues that order has violated the law and should be charged. And there should also be civil liability. Under Section 1983, the ICE officer who is imperiled and does not get a response from local police for protection has had his constitutional rights violated, and he can proceed with this civilly. So there are remedies under the law if those occurrences are actually happening. And if they are happening, what I don't want to see is Marines in city streets as a response. That should be a last resort if there is, quote, a rebellion or insurrection taking place, which is what the law allows. But I don't want that to be a pretext for the president putting the military in the streets. There are remedies.
Mr. Carl.
I agree with everything we just heard completely. What they're doing is pursuant to absolute clear legal authority of the president, and the resistance at local situations in states and certain cities is absolutely wrong and illegal and should be stopped. But I hope it doesn't get to a point where, as we said, that you need to bring the actual military in to support ICE. We that would indicate a crisis that we've, I think, never really seen.
Mr. Stubblefield.
Yeah, we're looking at this argument in isolated instances. We're looking at them in silos, if you will. It's hard to get a thorough picture that covers all facets. For one thing, if the military come in to protect a building, a federal building, that is legitimate in every sense of the word. If they come in to extend beyond the boundaries of that building, which has happened in 2 or 3 cases, that is bordering on a police state. And this is really a slippery slope. And what defines a federal building? Does it go out 1 block? Does it go out 4 or 5 blocks? And this is where one of the issues comes in. And the individuals look at it, in some cases they say they're very restrained. Other cases they're not restrained. But the issue of ICE agents themselves brings a spectrum of our federal government that we've not had before. When you go into churches and arrest people, some illegal, some are legal. When you go into grocery stores, when you go into schools, when you have this pervasive fear that you're afraid to go outside, and if they were all illegal aliens, that's one thing. A lot of them are not. We have really pushed ourselves. This goes back to the discussion we had the last 30 minutes with one of the points that the Trump administration has started, and there's so many of these, it's hard to push back on just one because there's a dozen more coming down the road. One is the enforcement of the ICE agents. They've been given carte blanche permission to go beyond anything I think we've seen in a recent history, and I hope we don't see in the future. But right now, they have put a real fear in a large sector of our community that, by and large, are productive, constructive, and contribute to the well-being of our community. Now, there are a few outliers, but they're small in number, very small percent. But the whole community is being threatened. And I think we, as the fabric of our country, is being threatened as well.
Mr. Schultz?
Yes. As I've said on this show about a variety of things, first let me say I agree with Mr. Ferretti. What I would add to what he said is, if you believe that these ICE agents are being threatened, then prove it. That's how our system works. Don't call a press conference and say it. Go and prove it. One of the problems, though, is that they have masks on. They're wearing no badge. Their name is not available. How do they prove that they're ICE agents? How do they actually prove it? It's kind of odd because the people they're arresting have to come up with passports and birth certificates and all kinds of documentation, but they don't have any documentation visible at all. So if I were to be on the streets of a city, not likely, but someday soon, and I see a guy wearing a bulletproof vest that says ICE and has a mask, how do I know that's an ICE agent? How do I know that? With other police, any other police at almost any level, you know who they are.
How do you know?
They have a badge on. Mm-hmm. Their name in West Virginia is on their shirt.
How do you know it's theirs?
Well, you can't be positive, but if you're not going to show it to me at all, then my assumption is you're not that guy.
So what you're showing is it says ICE agent.
Yeah,
But
right.
no face. But no face.
No face.
So
I can't take a picture of the guy's face and find out later whether this guy really is an ICE agent? That's ridiculous.
he's got a big
And
vest
we don't
on
allow
there.
that here.
Big vest that says ICE.
Right. I could get one of those.
There's
I
zero-
could have one by the weekend.
You can get a uniform with the badge too.
But no personal
There's zero
identification.
evidence that there's any people mocking or acting
I'm
illegally.
saying
as
is,
ICE. There's no proof of that whatsoever.
you guys are the ones arresting people, so the burden is on you, to
guys.
prove
Wait,
all
you,
this
what's
stuff.
the you guys? I'm not part
The
of
right
this.
wingers.
Oh, right winger.
And- yeah,
ICE
the
is
right-
all right wingers.
Yes. Pretty much.
Were all the ICE right wingers when they deported 3.2 million people under Obama? Were those all right winger ICE people?
They've hired a bunch of new ones. You may not have been aware
I'm
of this, but
asking
they
about
spent
those.
a ton of money.
Under the Obama administration,
Right.
they
Were they
deported
wearing masks back then?
way more people.
Were they wearing masks
Were
and
they
hiding their
right
identity?
wingers?
I don't know.
Were they right wingers?
Well, if they're wearing masks and their identity,
How about they
I'm
were
going to
just
go ahead and
ICE
assume they are.
agents doing their job? When
Well-
it was Obama, they were just ICE agents doing their job. Now
Right.
it's under Trump,
And they
they're
weren't
ICE
wearing a
agents
mask
who
to
are
do it.
right wingers who are deporting people
They-
illegally.
They weren't hiding. They weren't hiding their identity. That makes me suspicious. It would
They're
make
hiding their
anyone
identity
suspicious.
60
because
seconds to
people
wrap it
on
up,
the
Mark.
left are doxing them.
Well, that happens to police
and-
officers too. They don't wear a mask. The state cops don't wear a mask.
Right, but you got
Why?
people on the left going after their families. That's why they're hiding their faces, so you don't dox them, so you don't go after their kids. That's why.
Well, so no police officer ever faces that, even though he doesn't wear a mask. That's just part of the deal. It's unfortunate. It's a crime. It's
okay.
wrong.
30
Okay?
seconds, Mike.
But
Final thought goes back to you. Wrap it up.
So I agree with what Joe said. I think you should prosecute these individuals if this is happening. I don't agree with the police state. I don't agree with the National Guard coming into these cities unless, like Bill said, they're just protecting the building and there is credible evidence that it's under attack. So I would rather not see the National Guard in these cities. But you have to do something. You have to prosecute these individuals when there are cases of them attacking ICE or attacking federal buildings.
And on that note, we wrap it up and put Larry Schultz on the clock for issue number 4, and then Mike Carl. We are back after these. We are produced by the sports doctor Colin McLaughlin. He'll be busy with high school football tonight with the rest of our TV10 crew. And we welcome back our Friday 5 panel for the final quarter of the program here. That includes Joseph Joey Torts Ferretti via telephone. Joe, welcome back.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
At least he was not muted.
At least.
Yeah, I quickly got the button. Right?
I could tell. I could definitely tell. I thought there might be some.
No one wants to hear my conversations with my wife. So.
Or around the table between
I'm not so
commercials.
sure that's true.
I don't know if that's true. Yeah.
I think the entire audience needs to hear those conversations.
Let us hear them first, then we'll judge whether or not they're radio worthy. Let's say good morning once again to the Badger, Michael Height.
Good morning. Good to be here.
He is the longest tenured member of our crew, Mr. Michael Carl.
Good morning.
The Admiral Bill Stubblefield.
Good morning. We've had an engaged audience today, both around the table and also on Facebook. It's
And
fun.
With issue number 4, Mr. Lawrence Schultz.
Yeah, last week, Mr. Gilstrap explained to me that I was wrong when I suggested that the Israel Defense Forces had fired on Palestinians who were approaching aid trucks to get food. As you've heard me say earlier today, I don't take lightly to that. So The IDF has publicly admitted that its troops fired upon Palestinian civilians at food delivery sites, including during the flower massacre. Flower, not like the plant or the rose, but like the stuff you make bread out of to eat. In February of 24, that was. These and other incidents have resulted in a warrant issued by the International Criminal Court for Bibi Netanyahu, charging him with war crimes. Does anyone still deny these facts? And by the way, you can look up the flower massacre. There's a long article from February of 24 on Wikipedia that's full of citations that lay forth what happened.
All right, Mr. Carl.
I don't have any basis to oppose or challenge the validity of those statement of facts. The question is the reaction. What's the proper policy reaction to those facts? And I support what Trump's been doing and our country's been doing, but whether those facts are true or not.
I think there's a second part to this too, Larry, which might also boost the discussion, and that is the part about Netanyahu and war crimes. Does this rise to the level of war crimes, if true, and if it can be directly traced back to an order he gave, or is that even necessary? That much I don't know. Bill, go right ahead.
Yeah, this has been a real problem with me for the last several years. I've always been a big supporter of Israel. The Second World War was something that I historically have followed, and there was phenomenal humane injustice toward the Israelis or toward the Jewish folks. Israel became a country because of atrocities that we saw during the Second World War. No excuse can ever be made for what was done against the Jews, and I don't intend to. But as a consequence, I've always been favorably inclined toward Israel and the Jewish state. However, following October 2023, the reaction of the Jewish country toward the folks in Gaza, and the majority of them were not Hamas supporters. Some of them were, but the majority were not. But taken against the country as a whole, the devastation that these folks were subjected to makes me question my previous loyalty toward the state of Israel. Not from the Jews. I still very much supported the Jews, but the state of Israel. Folks said they did what Gaza deserved. I will never buy that. I think it was a crime against humanity. As I said, I've struggled with this because I've always been a supporter of Israel, but I think probably the reaction of Israel against the Gaza was to the extreme. And I think history will judge whether or not it rises to the level of war crimes. It may not, but it's going to be approaching it.
Mike Height.
I would have to go back to when you said should Bibi Netanyahu be arrested for this. What's the context of the actual firing on the civilians? I don't know. I'll take your word for it that it happened. I'm not going to dispute that. And if it did, somebody should have to pay. You shouldn't be shooting at civilians when they're trying to get aid. But did Bibi Netanyahu order that? I don't know that he did. And if he didn't, then no, he shouldn't be arrested. We shouldn't be calling for his arrest. Those who are responsible for pulling the triggers, those are the ones who should be arrested and tried and something being done about it. I don't know that I go to the point where Bill's at. We go back to the atrocities that were committed to the Jewish people on that October day, where children were beheaded in front of their parents, or parents were beheaded in front of their children, and hostages were taken. Those atrocities by Hamas were sort of like the straw that broke the camel's back, and is the state of Israel at that point, I believe, said, we have had enough. We have tried and tried and tried to deal with the Gaza Strip and the Palestinians. We have offered a two-state solution. We have gotten nowhere with this. We are fed up, and if violence is what you want, violence is what you're going to get. So I have no problem with what the state of Israel has done to Gaza and the Palestinian people who stood in the streets, whether they supported Hamas or not, stood in the streets and praised what happened to the Jewish people. Now, you say they didn't support Hamas? The hell they didn't. And they deserved everything they have gotten to this point. They brought this war upon themselves. Hamas and the Palestinian people have brought this war upon themselves. And the state of Israel has just responded. If this is what you want, if you want violence, then this is what you're going to get. You get violence. Now, I hope that we can come to a solution at this point and find peace in that area. I really hope we can. But I don't know if it is ever going, it will not be with Hamas running things in the Gaza Strip. And as a fact of the matter is, I think the state of Israel should take over the Gaza Strip and bring it back into the state of Israel and control it.
Bill, took you an hour and 44 minutes, but you did get the Badger worked up?
I did. And what I've just heard Mike say, I find frightening. I really find frightening. How we can justify destruction of thousands and thousands of people. Admittedly, October of 2023 was an atrocity. Those folks should be condemned. I agree with that 100%, Mike. But what they have subjected the Gaza folks, the people in Gaza to for the last 3 years is inhumane, and it racks very much of the atrocities we saw in the Second World War.
You're right, but didn't civilians die in the Second World War? Didn't German civilians die during the Second World War during all the bombings?
They did.
Didn't the people of the UK die in bombings in the Second War? Civilians die during wars. That is a tragedy of war. And whether they deserve it or not is totally irrelevant. They brought war upon themselves.
But there was a difference. There's a difference. In the Second World War, they were fighting for dominion and victory. In this case, there was no real threat to Israel. There may have been some isolated incidents such as what we saw in October 2023, but the country of Israel was not really under threat.
But they were.
They were not. They were not. Let me finish. They were not. They had some missiles being fired in, but the iron shield over Israel was more than sufficient to take down all the missiles. They had a deliberate intent of destroying the people and Gaza in total.
At what point do you say enough is enough? I'm not going to have Hamas sending missiles, whether I have an Iron Dome or not. Some of those it doesn't work all the time. So those missiles do come into Israel and they do kill civilians. At what point as a state do you say enough is enough? What if this were Mexico sending rockets into the United States? How long do you think that would happen before we invaded Mexico? With days.
But we would not destroy Mexico. We would not do a deliberate attempt of destroying Mexico and all of its people.
We would make an attempt to destroy everything that has to do with the government of Mexico and the military of Mexico that brought that upon us.
But what we saw in Gaza was far beyond that.
Right, because have been years and years and years and years of it, and the state of Israel had enough.
All right, to Joe Ferretti via telephone to close out the segment. Joe.
Well, I recall after 9/11, there was a fireman who stood atop the rubble in New York City, and he was crying. And he said, in response to the devastation and the loss of life, that for this country, there better be a hole in the ground somewhere, meaning that we better go obliterate somebody for this tragedy in New York City. But we didn't do that. We went and surgically started operations in Afghanistan in search of Osama bin Laden. And we eventually, and you can argue this, we ended up in Iraq in a war trying to take out Saddam Hussein. But those were surgical. We didn't go in and level any country or any region of a country. We have a Geneva Convention for a reason. When you conduct a war, there are rules of engagement in terms of protecting humanity. And as I mentioned last week, there's quite a few prominent Jewish journalists who have published their articles out of concern that a genocide was taking place in Gaza. And so, it's hard, the fog of war and all that. It's very difficult to draw lines when you're in the place of Israel and you suffered what they suffered in October of 2023. But firing on people lined up for food, the bombing of an ambulance that contained Chef Andre's World Kitchen operation people who were just there to try to provide food, the bombings of hospitals where sick people lay, all that should be scrutinized. And, whether Bibi Netanyahu becomes labeled a war criminal or not, I don't know that that's going to amount to much. I mean, Putin's been a war criminal for decades and nothing ever happens. So, but I think, some scrutiny is necessary here because, again, we do have a Geneva Convention, and I'm pretty sure Israel's a signatory to that.
Larry, 30 seconds, wrap it up.
Sure. Two things. The first one is it is a war crime to starve civilian populations by shooting on food trucks and otherwise attempting to starve little children who have no real stake in this at all except their lives. The other point is that if we look at this, you can condemn both Hamas and Israel, which is my view of this. Both of them have done unspeakable things in this, but that doesn't let Israel off the hook. I can't root for somebody who's starving little kids.
Issue number 5, Michael Carl.
The current lockdown of the government is a result of the 660 vote rule that the Senate has for, and the Republicans have taken advantage of that rule in the past. But is there any possibility that it gets so bad that the Trump administration goes to the Supreme Court and the Supreme Court rules that the current exercise of the 60 vote rule is unconstitutional?
Bill?
Yeah, I don't think it has to go to the Supreme Court. The Republican Party can, among themselves, revoke the filibuster rule. That's something that can be done by a simple majority. So the Republicans can do that. They have chosen not to do it. Shelley Moore Capito just said the last 2 or 3 days she would not be in favor of that. Manchin, to his credit, did not go along with it with the Democrats. It's not a Supreme Court decision, Mike. It is a Senate rule, and I do not believe either party is prepared to revoke the filibuster.
Mr. Schultz?
And I would agree 100% with what Bill just said. We've talked about this a little bit before. They do have the ability within the Senate rules to change those rules right now because unlike the House, the Senate is actually in session. They didn't all just go home. And the Senate could do this right now. Our senator, at least Shelley Moore Capito, has said she's not going to go for that. So if you have the power to change something and make this terrible shutdown go away and you refuse to do it, okay, but don't complain to me that the government shut down and there's nothing you can do about it, which is kind of what they're doing. They're saying, oh, this is awful. We can't do anything. Yes, you can. You can fix it right now. Literally, by the time I get back to my office after this show, the Senate could have a vote, and boom, it's done.
Michael Haidt?
Yeah, I would agree with what Bill said, that the Supreme Court's not going to get involved. This is an internal rule within the Senate. But the Senate is not going to change the rule. The Republicans are not going to change the rule any more than the Democrats would have changed the rule when they were in power. They realize that this is the only thing that the minority power has in their favor. And they know, the Democrats know, this is the only thing they have right now. They're not going to change it. Even though when they were in power, they talked about changing it. The Republicans know if we change this, we're not going to be in power forever. It will stifle us when we're in the minority. We're not going to change it. So it's not worth changing it just to get the budget passed right now. The Republicans passed a clean resolution and said, let's negotiate on the points that we don't agree on. It's the Democrats that refuse to pass the continuing resolution to get the government back to work and get them paid for while they negotiate the contentious issues. And the contentious issues are about providing funding for illegal aliens for medical. Well, you can laugh all you want, but
That's
if you
ridiculous.
look at, if it's not, you can look at
That's not what it's about.
it is. And you can look at the proposals by the Democrats, and it's written in there in plain language. That's what they want.
Joe Ferretti.
I guess I thought I heard that Senator Justice was asked about the filibuster rule, and his response was, "I swear, I thought I paid that bill." By the way, that's a joke. Okay.
It went over our heads, Joe.
We should not be lost on us in West Virginia that we could thank Senator Byrd for this filibuster rule, and I think it's a good thing. It protects us from the tyranny of the majority. I think that was the impetus behind Senator Byrd's procedural rule, which, as has been stated, can be changed by the Senate if they want to. But bottom line here is no one's going to abandon that because, as Mike Height suggested, someday you're going to be in the minority and you're going to rely on it. So that's what's happening right now, and that's becoming a real sticking point. Now, I will suggest to perhaps move the ball forward, maybe the House, which has been in recess for over a month, should get back to D.C., get to work, and see if we can get these problems solved.
Mr. Epstein's standing in the way of that. Because if they come back, they got to swear in Adelita Grijalva. And if they do that, the Epstein files are going to get released.
Well, that's
we
a
know
point.
about that.
Mike Carl comes back to you.
Well, the discussion has convinced me, of course, that the Supreme Court won't take the action, but given Trump's ego, and I think his acknowledgement that he can't be elected president a third time, he might press the Senate to change the rule.
And Mike, the way the Senate's been doing everything he asked, that very well may happen.
Yeah, I think as this stretches on, 35 days is the record, I guess, and we're rapidly approaching that. I think the Democrats have painted themselves in a corner they can't get out of in this. And the reason why I tell you that is I frankly don't think the Republicans care how long the government is shut down because they don't really give a damn about the federal employees anyway. I think they showed that in January, right? So the Democrats are in a situation here. In November, the premium increases kick in. Then what? So who's going to give? The Republicans are going to give on this. So the Democrats have got to make a decision. Do we want to go in, vote on this, and let the Republicans own the premium increase? Which is what I would have done from the beginning.
Yep.
That was the move. This move here has no end point to it. It's a corner they painted themselves in. I don't think they can get out. And I don't think they know how to get out of it right now either.
Yeah, I don't. The polls don't support you on that, Rob.
Bill, Republicans don't care about the polls in this issue.
Well, maybe the case, but I think the Republicans are in more of a corner right now than the Democrats are because of the health care issues.
Well, I don't. We disagree on that, but that's okay. But I think that at some point along the way, Democrats are going to have to vote to break this because there's no way to win for them right now.
The next midterm election will tell us who's winning.
Yeah, exactly right, Mike. You're exactly right.
Yeah, and typically that's not a good election for those in power. Unless you gerrymander the districts and change how many people are up for election.
I'm going to give Trump some advice
5
right
seconds,
now.
5 seconds.
Announce that you're going to run for California governor and allow people to move
Final
back into California.
thoughts right after these. Final thoughts on the phone. Joe Ferretti, go.
I apologize to Senator Justice because now there's a report out where he claims the IRS owes him money.
Schultz.
Go to the Community Alternatives to Violence Facebook page and get yourself some tickets to the 1980s Decade Dance in Charlestown this weekend, 6 to 11 on Saturday night.
Bill Stubblefield.
Shepherd University is having the homecoming parade tomorrow. Get out and enjoy. It's going to be a beautiful day.
Mike Garl.
With the performance of the Commanders and the Mountaineers, all I can say is go Bulldogs.
Badger, 5 seconds.
Hey, beautiful time of the year. My favorite time of the year. Get out and enjoy the weather.
Dave Ramsey Show's coming up next. Have a great weekend. This is Talk Radio, WRNR Martinsburg and TV10, and we'll talk again in 70 short hours.
It's 5 o'clock somewhere.